Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Aseer the Duke of Tears. It's you, the people. Hope everything is as well as it can be in these crazy, exacting times. A lot of things going on. Made sure I kept some notes to remember some of the other things that have been happening. One of the things, or one of the unfortunate things that has happened is we're watching the actual implosion of what we refer to as the conscious community, but what the powers that be refer to as the access way to metaphysical black consciousness. That's what the conscious community represented in that ascendancy, because that's the community that actually acted as the subconscious to the mainstream so-called black community that gave this guy, who is their president now, Barack Obama, the ability to propel himself to that lofty position. Because it was people like Bobby Hemmett and people like Valentine and people like, you know, some of the other people, Blair, bless the dead, these type of people that was going in on the spiritual understanding of what he is. So whether he was a puppet or not, whether he was down with them or not, or whatever, it didn't take away from the spiritual representation of what he represented as an archetype for a people who have been dejected for so many years. So even though he ain't do nothing for original people, you know what I'm saying, as a whole, but wage war on them, the fact that he could be in a position to have a all so-called black family to the eye, to the excuse me, to the sight, because there's a whole nother thing about who and what he and those people really are, who Michelle is, who the children are, all of that. But that falls under the realms of things that people refer to as conspiracy theories. But the problem with even using that word is the fact that that word was created in 1963 by the CIA to detract people from taking real information that was now being spouted to the mainstream media and the people who would actually go into the community and actually find out what really happened. So that now has blossomed into this new understanding and this new narrative that they've created called fake news. You know what I'm saying? This fake news narrative is actually coming from CNN, ESPN, Fox, all of the mainstream media, which represents and is fake news under the Right to Journalism Act and some of the other yellow journalism things that were put into play that allows them to create fake news and things like that they're now trying to pump to the community, meaning that anybody that's not accepting the mainstream version of news media is now a fake news pundit or is trying to promote fake news. So that's another way of saying propaganda. But propaganda is exactly what the intelligence agencies been pumping in the world to do everything they've been doing. There's actual documentation that you can reference that actually has how many times that CNN ran a fake story for CNN, and it's up into the 400 times. So it's probably even more than that. You know what I'm saying? But the bottom line is we'll never know, because the intelligence or clandestine agencies, or what they refer to as the clandestine services, are actually a part of the grand theater of what perpetuates itself as war and things like that, to help create a perpetual system based on the law of relativity. The law of relativity, again, is based on gravity. So the thing about these people is that everything that they're doing on a physical level is a representation of something that is non-physical, you see what I'm saying, but is actualized. So for instance, the engine, right, is the heart of the car. You understand what I'm saying? So in that, the river is the lifeblood to the town. You understand what I'm saying? So everything that physically exists in the world, they have to create a physical version for themselves to act as that. So where God is the judge, they create a physical judge in the world, right? And then try to get you from not dealing with God as the judge, but now dealing with them representing God as the judge, because that's what, like the Pope, that's what he is. He's the Vicar Filii Dei, right, which represents the Vicar of Christ, the substitute of Christ on earth is the Pope. And then they've created a system guarded by Jesuits and Order of Dumas and these type of people that are out there, Opus Dei and all of that, that's out there infiltrating every other community, every other whatever, and then perpetuating an idea of a narrative, of a story, that they are there to support whatever's going on in the community, when they're really there to infiltrate the community and eventually destroy it, so that way the papal community can come in and do their thing. So there's been a big push in the United States politics by Catholics to go against the person that they putting into the election. And like I said, everything that's happening is the war to forestall the eventual evolution of humanity, of people. So one of the last big tricks that they got is this thing called I think I wrote it down, it's so preposterous, but the name alone is mad funny. It's called the Antique Emergency Escape Valve. This is, or allegedly is, an antiquated, somewhat secret tenet hidden within the annals of the United States government that allows people in the government to usurp the votes of everybody else in the country and the Electoral College, in case the means of the business aristocracy are ever threatened. So what it is specifically, I don't know. How it is going to be implemented, I don't know. But it's mentioned in one of those Illuminati tarot cards that they've been putting out. And the interesting thing, like I said, about stuff like this is that these are the things that they just start to come up with after a while, once they realize that there's really nothing that they can do to salvage the position they're in. So what we're seeing happen in the pseudo mainstream, right, what we're really seeing is the breakdown again of the law of relativity, meaning that all of the things that we're seeing with these people are based upon are relative to one another. And as they're relative to one another, they're all affected by each other's gravity. You understand? But what's happening now is that we have a whole new wave of souls incarnating here that don't have any of the negative karma of the past ages. And then those of us who were born as indigos or crystals or whatever you want to call it, those of us that are born with that Christ consciousness, right? We are the ones who these souls chose to inherit as their parents. So that way we would teach them how it is to really navigate through this reality. So in the real reality, we're in the age of Aquarius. But if you subscribe to things that they're saying now, based upon the positioning now of us in the Milky Way and us in the juxtaposition to the moon and things like that, they're functioning under a 13 moon system here. So on a 13 moon system here, I would be in Aries, and then that would mean we would be on the age of Pisces. That is if we're on the Orion arm of the Milky Way. But when I was raised or coming up, I thought we were on the Sagittarius arm. You see what I'm saying? Which is like down here. They're saying we're up here now. So if that's the case, where did the movement come from? How do we go from one side of the universe to the other? Now this is what NASA and these type of people are putting out. You see what I'm saying? So this is not me making up something or whatever, because for some reason, I don't know, because I studied things like quantum mechanics and quantum physics, which are active forms of study, which is an industry that generates $1.2 billion a year on hypothetical research. They are spending $120 trillion. Now how much money they pay them scientists and them people up there at CERN? And that's just like the downstairs version. Like I said, that's the maintained, controlled universe version of what we really were instinctively made to be. So while they have to create a Hadron Collider, we're born with one. But ours is called the pineal organ. But our pineal organ, which is the seat of the Most High, of the arm, leg, arm, head, has now been devolved or is now ingested into whatever religion people allow themselves to be devoured by, to now inhibit its true uniqueness, which then isolates it within the herd mentality that now generates a somewhat sociopathic pathology amongst the people who become zealots of whatever the religion they are. So there's a saying that says that man becomes the fool for the divinity he worships. So that means because there's so many ideologies in the conscious community. Let's look at it like this. What if the conscious community was like a organism, a brain, right? And each one of the so-called conscious aspects or groups in it represented a thought or a part of the brain. Now, if your brain, right, was thinking about Kemet, but then the Moorish side, or then the RBG side of your brain started basically banging on the Moorish side of your brain, or the side that accepts you as an Egyptian, or the side that accepts you as a Muslim, or the side that accepts you as whatever, that means that you would be basically suffering from a form of dissociative identity disorder. You would be trying to figure out which identity is somewhat original to you as an individual. So if we look at the conscious community as then an organism, maybe what is happening is that in order for the organism that is obviously sick to get better, it's starting to expel, right, and starting to expose aspects of itself that is ill, so that way it can be severed or taken out of the body to preserve the whole. Maybe that's what's going on. So when we look at it, the fact that yes indeed it's been infiltrated, yes indeed agents is doing this and that, yes indeed it's broken down, it's just it is the real reality that the fake reality has mirrored itself on, because it's what we were doing the knowledge to that became big. It wasn't until, like I said, people like Ashraf Kwesi and some of the elders would come out and was busting down all of the Kemet stuff that they came out with movies like Stargate and all of that. You understand what I'm saying? But remember, you're dealing with a sociopathic agenda and sociopathic people, meaning the people that are running this agenda, that are at war with themselves. The so-called Brotherhood of Death versus the Brotherhood of Evil. These are the two warring factions within the global so-called elite system that is within every aspect of every national government in the world, that are either trying to break away or go into this so-called system to maintain it or break away from it. So in that, nobody's in control. Because remember, these computers that they doing all of this stuff with are based on the true crystal computers that exist outside this dimension in the higher frequency, in what we refer to as the sixth sense, which again is a dimension. Your sight is a dimension. Your touch is a dimension. But all of the five senses are physical. The one that is the most important, or the most that is eternal, the sixth sense, right, which allows you to interface with the spirit technologies that exist in the universe, right, are all access based on your will. But your will then is channeled through your faith. So spirit promotes faith. You see what I'm saying? In order to bond faith and spirit, one has to have the will. And the will is what allows you to be dominant now on the physical plane to make what you got to make happen. However, if you're waiting for people to come out the sky, if you're waiting for these people to get it together, if you're waiting for people in the community to finally come up with a plan, then you're part of the problem, because each one of us has a part of the plan already to fulfill that we're already doing, whether we realize it or not. We're either delinquent in our duty or we accepting the responsibility of it. So those of us that are truly accepting of it, we don't necessarily have to have the greater public accolades to do that. But guess what? Even a dog likes to get patted on the head sometime. So if a man is worthy of his hire, and a man is worthy of what it is that he produces, then he should be respected for that. No matter who it is, no matter what their position is. But we come from a gang mentality. We come from a homogenized reality. We come from a herd-like associative identity based upon us taking the bottom ring of society for the past 240 years. So now that we're at this point where all bets is off and we can ascend into whatever reality we accept for ourselves, the reality as we know it has been switched, right? So the one constant in all of these different, regardless of what reality it is, regardless to what earth it is, regardless to whatever you want to say, you are always you in all of them. It's just that which reality are you going to stand up and be the primary self to then actualize the mentality of all the other selves at all of the other points of reality or nexus points of earths or whatever you want to call them, and then raise them up into the true self, which is the what the Kabbalists would call the Ein Sof, which the magicians would call the Oversoul, which cartoonists would call the word bubble, like whatever you want to call it. But what our ancestors from Egypt so-called referred to it as, specifically Akhenaten during the El Armana dynasty, he referred to it as the Aten or the Aten, right? Which represented the one sun with the many hands, with the many rings, all representing a different aspect of self, somewhat similar to an octopus, right? And we know that H.P. Lovecraft and them, who were deep Theosophics from the Theosophic Society under Aleister Crowley and them, right? We all know that they worship Cthulhu, and Cthulhu represents one of the 7 gods of the Uduru, who represented those who are sleeping, right? Who sleeps in the deep while we exist in the dream. So again, that's another reconstruction of the Moors, right? And the Moorish legacy to the world. So in that, we're now reaching a point where those of us who have established what our identity is and moored ourselves to that, we now can receive the true celestial understanding of what that and what those people was doing. So when you see movies like Pirates of the Caribbean, when they was in places like Escamaica, which is Jamaica, right, with the so-called Maroons, the pirates, but the Maroon were any Moors who were against the colony, who were against colonists. So if you was in Haiti and you was against the colonists, you was a Maroon. If you was in Escamaica and you was against the colonists, you was a Maroon. If you was in America, you was a Maroon. So when we talk about the Seminole War, when we talk about the Maroon Wars, when we talk about the Spanish-American War, when we talk about the so-called French-Indian Wars, all of those are the wars of the American Revolution. But they done split that up, and they only give you the last part of it when the white Freemasons had reached a level of refinement where they could be brought in as officers to fight for the Continental Army. But the records of all of what I'm talking about is right there in the Library of Congress. But they in the records of the Continental Congress, and all of that, or most of that, is in Latin, right? So we had somebody in the community that was teaching that, right? But the Moors was hating on him because of where he came out of. Oh, he came out of New Orleans, so he was whack. So how can that be when all of us contribute to what came out of us? So we all were listeners. If you listen to anything or you ever read a book of Dr. York's, then there's a part of you that accepted what Dr. York said is real. If there was ever anything that you read or saw with Farrakhan and he said that blah, 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 that means that there was a part of you at one point that accepted that was real at that time. That don't mean that you got to accept that now. That don't mean that you got to be on that now. But our people are habitually lazy, and we fall into these patterns based upon us not having anything to galvanize to move forward, because we're looking for somebody else to do it, when really we've already done it. There's a point in the future where we're already where we need to be. So all we got to do now is figure out how to get there. So instead of contemplating how they're going to invade the world and what the third world war is going to be and how the nuclear bombs is going to fall and all that, start to contemplate what would it be like to meet other aspects of yourself. Right now, if you could see a version of yourself, you probably wouldn't even think it was you, because you don't even know what you really look like, because you only see yourself based upon a reflection. So you don't even look like that. I don't even look like this. But in a higher dimension, what do you look like? In wherever what you look, you can't even think of that, because you got to think about how to get bills, how to eat, how to get food, all that. You see what I'm saying? So not having a nationality, not having a base, not having a true structure of geography of who you are, how are you going to center yourself in the universe? So of course they could move you from one side of the galaxy to the next. How would you know? Can you read the stars? Do you know where the Big Dipper is? Do you know where north, south, and south, north, east, and west is? I do. Can you find it without a compass? Do you know what side of the tree moss grows on? No, you don't know none of that. But you know more is science, though. You can quote the Quran back to front to me. Can you survive in the? Can we read the Quran if we had to survive in the forest, nigga? Can you do that? That's more science too. You know what I'm saying? More science just don't exist in one place. Y'all have locked it down and split it up and then act like all of this stuff is different when it's all coming from the same thing. If it came after 1913, guess what? It was influenced by the Prophet, period. It was influenced by the Moors, period. Period, because those was the only ones that was getting it popping.
Booyaka.
The only people that was getting it popping was the Moors. The British Empire fell to the Great Mahdi. He was a Moor. He took the head of Captain Gordon. Read. Get the science on it. Read about where the Saudi Arabian people come from, why they could do the shit they do now. Because the Moors like us. Dark-skinned Moors, black people, where if they was walking down the street right now and the pigs seen them, they beat their ass too. Moors like that. They the ones doing that. This is when the Sudan was part of Egypt. Which means it's still a part of Egypt. Which means Sudan is still a part of Egypt right now. So why it's not? Because you got all these other people up in there running, bugging out. So the Africans got to consolidate. Just like we got to consolidate. Al-Maraganos got to consolidate too. So let's tighten up, man. Stop hating and look at the realities as they unfold around you. Because it ain't just one anymore. You living in a multiple dimension. And you only reading one book? Come on, man. Our ancestors wrote everything. Did everything. Y'all niggas, we got a whole mansion. Everybody in the bathroom acting like that's the only room in the house. So you want to get out of there before somebody mess it up, go to the bathroom and just stink it up and go into the rest of the house. You got to have a plan. You got to have a basis of who you are, not just spiritually, physically, but also genetically, metaphysically. You know what I'm saying? Multiversally. It's a whole different thing now. Y'all, and y'all think it's science fiction. Y'all think it's a joke. But this white man is, again, spending a $1.2 trillion. I've been reading about this stuff since the 80s. I've been reading about this tech information, all this stuff. Now it's happening, and everybody want to stop reading. They just, you know what I'm saying? So again, man, this has been called quantum superpositioning. So if you were looking for one main thought, I did it in a manner that came as it was supposed to come, through the quantum, through the truth. So I hope you enjoyed it. If it was disjointed for some, that's cool. Quantum reality is totally different than physical reality, and quantum reality is the reality we're in now. We're no longer under the laws of relativity. You need to dead that. So what you understand about distance, space, time, all that's wrong now. All of that's wrong. Don't believe me? Don't believe me? Look at them crackers. Look at what they doing. Read about where they going. Look at all these Earths that's just popping up out of nowhere. You think they in a different space? Again, if you believe that, again, man, believe what you want to believe. Hit me up at houseofbell@hotmail.com. Again, it's been quantum superpositioning. Thank you, God, for holding the camera. We're gonna be out at Summit, North Carolina. Big up to the Moors of the Empire, and
long live the Empire.
Long live the Empire. Hold on, let me check. Yep. 5:15. Right? I'm gonna start doing the time check at the end of it, at the end of each one now, because time is moving at such a variable that this might not even, I might put it up, but people might not see it. Things is going crazy right now. So again, more peace.